Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day and above all else that you are looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the purpose of this episode, I'd like to welcome back to the channel Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
I'm doing okay, Armando. I'm on the backside of a cold, so if I sound a little froggy, maybe that's what it's all about.
That's fine. That's fine. It is that time of year. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Buried Treasures Part 2. Um, in Part 1, I labeled it a musically schizophrenic journey. And I will be giving you my schizophrenic reaction to said list that Jim gave me in part one. I, in turn, will be giving Jim five obscure albums that he may not have heard of, and possibly some of you out there may not have heard of. Um, yeah, this list that Jim gave me is quite the list. And yeah, schizophrenic was the only way, musically schizophrenic, sorry, is the only way I can describe this list. But we'll go through this list, right? Uh,
Okay. And there's I don't know, Armando, are you planning on putting a link to the original video down in the description for this one if people want to go back and
that's
say,
right. Yeah, I will.
what is this data processing thing,
Yeah, yeah. No, I will be doing that definitely, definitely. So, let's go through this list, shall we? Number one, we have Mandy Moore with Coverage, released in 2003 through Sony Music. Um, yeah, 12 tracks. Basically, the album title probably says it all. Coverage, a covers album of songs ranging from, let's say, it's all over the map. I mean, from bands like XTC to groups like artists like John Hyatt, bands like Blondie, Joni Mitchell. It's pretty much musically schizophrenic. Um,
but it's all in like the 70s, 80s wheelhouse of
yeah,
like, you
yeah,
know, singer-songwriter power pop.
that kind of vein. Yeah, it is. Um, it is contained to the 70s and 80s vibe in terms of the music. I liked it. I think
Cool.
in terms of the song choices, I mean, Senses, the album starts off with Senses Working Overtime. I mean, from XTC. Come on. I mean, that to me, that's a classic, right? And for her to take it on and give it her own spin, I think she did a fantastic job. The Whole of the Moon from the Water Boys, like, come on. That, I mean,
I love that. I love that cover version. It's so well done.
yeah, yeah. I think she made some bold choices. I think she made some daring choices. Can we still be friends? With, Todd Rundgren. I mean, a lot of this stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff. Um, I wouldn't say that she did a complete cover of it. I think she did her own spin to them, and I think
Hmm.
overall, I think she does it very well. She
Yeah,
does it very
yeah.
well.
She's not
Um,
doing radical reinterpretations of the songs. She's kind of staying true to their essence, but it's just from, like I said, 2003. So there's, modern production techniques here and
yes.
there, but it's not like there's no question that, that song is I Feel the Earth Move by Carole King.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, she does stay true to the original production, but she also gives it a bit of a twist, a bit of a notch
Yes,
here and there, just to sort of make it her own. And I think on the whole, she does it fantastic, a fantastic job of it. I like her. I do like her version of Census Working Overtime. The highlights of the album for me, I'll just go quickly. Uh, Census Working Overtime, obviously. The Whole of the Moon is great. Uh, I Feel the Earth Move, Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatters. I think those are fantastic versions. Help Me, I think it's just beautifully done. It's just it's 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 just a fantastic version of that track. Um, Have a little faith in me. I think it's a good way to end off the album. So overall, I think she
Yeah,
did a very good job on this album. And these are not really easy songs to cover. Like Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatter. It's like, come on. Um, you know,
sure. A lot of these songs are so closely identified with the artist that
yeah,
to try to cover them is almost a fool's errand.
yeah,
But hats off to her and the production team for cranking these out. The songs are so good, you'd really have to F it up to, not have it be, you know, sounding really good. And
yeah,
they did not F it up.
yeah. No, 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 no. Definitely. I think she did a fantastic job on all the tracks. Now, moving on to the second album of the five, Group 87, A Career in Data Processing. Um, in my notes, I have your Of Its Time,
Oh,
released in
very much.
84. Yes, yes. Overall, a fantastic jazz fusion album with, obviously electronic elements. Very few notes on this. This is brand new to me. I didn't even know this album existed, ladies and gentlemen. Um, uh, the the one track that does stand out with for me was the Mask Maker. And pretty much in my notes, I have good trumpet, good use of trumpet on this track.
Yeah.
Um, to me, this is an album you can just sit back, put on, sit back, and just relax with a drink. And I mean, I'm not a drinker, but if you drink, Merlot, whatever, and just relax and enjoy yourself and take a ride.
Yeah.
Take a ride. This is an album that was done, from what I can gather, listening to it. It was done for the sheer joy of making music. It wasn't done to to appease any chart, any market in terms of like a record company exec or whatever, or for making. Obviously, you want to sell numbers, but it was done for the sheer sake of making an album, for the love of the
Yeah.
that they were creating. Uh,
Yeah, I certainly can't recall another album that sounds like this. I mean, there are elements of little things here and there, but as far as like a cohesive record that has this vibe to it, this is pretty darn unique.
yeah, yeah. This album just sit in a pretty much in a box on its own in terms of a category to put it in, like, in terms of a hit maker or whatever, or an album of hits. This is an album that was just, again, done just for the sheer sake of for the love of the compositions and the love of the music that they wanted to create at the time. And
Mm,
as you said, Peter Van Hook, the drummer, went on to be in Mike and the Mechanics for the next 10 years after this, a year later,
hmm
from 85 to 95. So um, overall, the one track that does stand out is The Mask Maker for me, but it is a good album. I would need to sit with it just a bit more just to get into it some more. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, Album number three, oh boy, Infectious Grooves. Oh my God. Um,
The plague that makes your booty move.
yes, released in 1991. I wouldn't say it's a sonic brain aneurysm, but uh, not far from it. The
Not far from it.
um I really didn't know what I was listening to. I mean, obviously, it's rap, it's funk, it's blistering guitar solos. I do hear a bit of the Red Hot Chili Peppers coming along in terms of the slapping bass lines and stuff.
Hmm
It really isn't one that I would go back to.
hmm Oh, you
Uh,
got to be in a real specific mood to kind of
yeah,
take this on and enjoy it.
yeah, you really have to be in an effed up mood. I mean, in order to take this on. I mean, yeah. Um, Oof.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think when we recorded it, I described this as Metallica meets Fishbone, and I still think that's a pretty apt
yeah,
description. Would you agree?
yeah, Yeah,
Okay.
the interludes, the spoken interludes that come in really don't add much to the album in my estimation.
Yeah.
But um, thank you for introducing it to. I do remember the name of the band. I do remember the band being around at the time, but yeah, no,
Yeah. Okay.
no, it's not in something that I would go back to. Um,
I will do a name drop though in case people are curious about that. The bassist on this record is Robert Trujillo, who went on, of course, to be
yeah,
in
it's
Metallica,
Metallica, yeah.
and he is throwing it down, baby.
Oh, he is slapping that bass like it's no one's business. I mean, he's making that bass his bitch, basically, in that on the album. No, no, I mean, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
nothing more can be said. I mean, he is a fantastic bass player,
Yep.
and for the, oh my God, for those of you out there, also a little note on Robert Trujillo. He did directed was the executive producer, sorry, of a documentary on
Hmm.
Jaco Pastorius that
Yes.
you guys really need to check out. I have it. I love it. And this man loves music. He is a fan of all music genres, and I was, but this album, whew, it was hard. It was hard
Yep.
for me to get through it. It really, yeah, no, I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
So now I'm understanding where you're getting the Schizophrenic, going from Mandy Moore to Group 87 to Infectious Grooves, and
Yeah.
and I think it continues.
Well, yeah, next up on the list we have Yako M. Yasik. I believe you pronounce his name.
I think it's Jacko M. Jaksic.
Okay, Jocko M. Jasic. The Brewers Romantic Glee Club, released in was it '06. Um, the album is split up into two sections, now and then. Um, beautiful, beautiful overall. Just a fantastic album. This is an album that you can put on again. If you want to put albums on for like when you have a dinner party or whatever, when you have people over, this is an album that you can put on and just let go and let it play. Um,
Hmm.
certain songs, the title track, I have in my notes, beautiful sax on the track, and what I hear is as Mellotron. It's- I hear Mellotron being used on the album.
I
Uh,
wouldn't be shocked if there is.
yeah. Um, I mean, great use of flute on certain songs. Just a very beautiful album to listen to, very tranquil in spots. Um, the vocalist for this album for me really isn't how can I put it? His vocals aren't really distinguished from other, like you can't sort of say, okay, oh, I know who that is singing. When you hear his voice, it's,
Ah, okay.
do you know what I mean? It's not, I'm losing my words here, distinguishable, I guess, from other vocalists. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Uh,
yeah, it's not this, like you say, this immediate, connection you can make,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it's a fantastic album. And you can get this on Discogs and other, Amazon, my best friend these days, thanks to the mail strike,
Yep.
um, you Canada Post, go back to work. Anyway, that's another episode altogether. Um,
Another rant.
yeah,
So,
another
so just for a little bit of context, Jocko was the vocalist and second guitarist for the King Crimson, I'll say,
That's right.
reboot that
Yeah,
ran from 2013 through 2021.
that's right.
Um, Obviously, that's a he had some big shoes to fill, not only handling vocals that ran the gamut from Greg Lake all the way through Adrian Belew, but
Yeah,
he had some pretty thorny guitar parts to learn as well.
yeah,
I get where I think Jocko's voice becomes a bit more identifiable, just with time spent with it. I mean, I've listened to umpteen, of those King Crimson shows that have been officially released.
Yeah,
So I sort of get my arms around it real quick, but I get where you're driving at.
yeah. No, I mean, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is new territory for me.
Mhm.
I didn't even know that this album existed. I do. When you mentioned the name in part one of the episode, the name was familiar to me because I remember that he did some remixes for the Jethro Tull catalog,
Yes.
part of the box set reissues. So that the name stuck out in my mind as because of that for that. But listening to this album again, just for the first time, sorry, um, the vocals didn't really stand out in terms of okay, I know who this is. It was, there's nothing wrong with them at all,
Mhm.
but they're fine. But on the then portion of the album, the one song that did stand out for me is "Pictures of an Indian City."
Yeah.
Um, and in my notes, I have your literally pure experimentation, and the fact that they use sitar and tabla in the instrumentation, I think is just fantastic.
Yeah.
I
It's a
I
great
like
choice.
I like this album because it's not afraid to go off in different areas musically. It's not afraid to experiment and just try something different, right?
Right.
Obviously, it is jazz fusion, but it 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 diverts. It goes off on different avenues, and but then it
Right.
comes back home to mother kind of thing. It comes back to the jazz fusion element. So,
Hmm.
like again, coming back to mother, right? Coming back home. So I like it for that, and I'm going to be looking into that album. I'm going to see if I can get myself a copy. I know it's on Discogs.
Yep.
And let's see here. The oh my God, yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot here on this album.
It's a
Um,
it's a it's a stuffed double album. There's a
yeah,
lot of great things in there.
yeah. The Citizen King is another fantastic track, the second to last track on the then portion. In my notes, I have a great harmony, guitar on the track. A lot of use of thick guitar tone on this album too.
Hmm.
That comes in, and and it's very epic in its arrangement of the track. I think it's quite, you know, I almost want to say cinematic, but it's very grand and big
Hmm.
in its arrangement. So no,
Well,
it's
the then disc is Jocko really embracing the early 70s like Prague Canterbury scene, bands in the UK where he grew up. So when you're
mhm,
talking about things like, cinematic, that's like, oh sure, that totally fits because a lot of what those bands were doing were very broad, in scope and expansive. So
exactly, exactly. No, no, I mean, it's great. It's great.
cool.
The next album on this list, I mean, I gotta tell you, you've opened my ears up to a lot of different styles. Some I wouldn't, in terms of music, some I wouldn't go back to, Infectious Groove, but others that, you know what, I'm gonna give this another shot. Um, I believe we're on the final album of the list here. Uh, Keith Jarrett, My Foolish Heart, live in Montreux, released in '87. Um,
2007.
oh, 2007, sorry. Two coffees, and I'm still screwed up today, guys.
Yeah.
2007. Um, when I first started to hear this, listen to it, um, I labeled it formed freeform, meaning that
Okay. Yep.
meaning that the you know the tracks have their structure, but within that structure, within that framework, you've got piano runs and bass runs like you would not believe. It's just like pure fun, pure joy, pure
Yes.
experimentation within that framework, right? Um,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is fucking fantastic. I don't mean to swear, but it is fucking fantastic. Sorry, guys.
Those are two F words that I would use to describe this record. Had I been plied with enough alcohol, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, well, I don't need the alcohol. I'm just naturally high. For that in terms of, but um, I mean, oh my God, this whole album is fantastic. It is simply fan fucking tastic. Okay, really. Starts off with the track four. All this is all instrumental, done live. A very, very intimate setting, kind of a feel,
Hmm.
but also expansive at the same time, if that makes any sense. You feel like you're sitting in a club, right? And
Yeah.
he's got your attention completely, right? And
Hmm.
you're just waiting for the next note or for the next phrase to come up, musical phrase to come up, and you're just like engrossed in what they're doing. And
Right.
it is fantastic. Songs that stood out for me, the title track, in my notes I have here, like fantastic bass on this track. Um, and other songs, I can't even list one song that's great. I mean, they're all
Yeah.
fantastic.
What's great? Side one and side two,
Too.
you know?
Exactly. Exactly. No, I mean, 12 tracks in total. Um, a lot of it is just pure fun, pure entertainment. Ain't Misbehaving. They do a version of Ain't Misbehaving. Hello. Drop the mic. That
I
is it.
told you. I
That
told you,
is it.
man.
That is it, man. I'm like, okay, I needed a cigarette after listening to that.
Hmm.
It was that good because you know what? You can tell that they're having fun with this.
Yep.
You can tell that before they went on stage, Jared said, you know what, guys? We'll stick obviously to the structures of the tracks, but you know what? Let's go for it. Let's just have fun. If you feel that you want to do a bit of a run here and there, like a solo here and there, do it. And we'll
Yep.
just see each other at the end of the ride. Enjoy the ride, strap yourselves in, and we'll get wherever we get to, we're going to get there together and we're going to have fun. That is what this album is musically, to me, anyways. And but what the hell do I know, right? And people are going to say that in the comments anyway. Um, so it didn't really matter. It's my opinion, right?
It's your channel. It's your
But
opinion.
well, it is what it is. I do think that when we do our shows together, it's our show together.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, I think other songs like Straight No Chaser, fantastic. I mean,
Oh yeah, Monk. Sure.
it's just great. I mean, again, the the phrase that I came up with, form to freeform, it's like that's the only way I can describe it because yes, you have to do the musical composition within the proper framework of the song. But within that framework, you can just go off and do whatever the hell you want to do, as long as it complements the composition overall and adds to the message of the composition. He
Yeah.
would let you do whatever the hell you wanted to do, and you would discuss it later. Uh, the overall feeling of this album is just pure and unadulterated fun and
Yep.
love of music and love of oneself and spirit. That's what I get from it, right? If that makes any
Hmm.
sense to anybody. Um, but yeah, no, I think this is a fantastic album. You can get this album on Amazon. You have to pay a little bit for it. You have to go through secondary sellers. You can also get this album, the Keith Jarrett album, on Discogs and also eBay. Or you know what? I go on YouTube and stream it and check it out. You can check out any of these albums on YouTube, and I'm telling you, uh,
What are you trying to say?
a musically schizophrenic journey is an apt title because you go from one end of the spectrum to the other. You start off with Randy Moore, you know what you're pretty much gonna get. You go through the other albums, like, oh my God, and you just
Yeah,
go
comparing Ain't Misbehaving to,
to
Infectious Grooves is
Infectious Grooves, yeah,
quite a thing.
yeah, from one extreme to another. But with Keith Jarrett, you just end up just loving every piece of music, every track on this album. Sorry, and it's great. It is great. I mean,
Keith Jarrett's discography is a gift that keeps giving,
yeah.
and I would suggest maybe we try to do a Keith Jarrett episode because this is like tip of the iceberg stuff.
Hmm. No, I agree. No, we're gonna do that. That's a good idea. We'll talk about that off camera, but we are going to be doing a Keith Jarrett episode. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my picks
Time
for
time for me to
Jim.
take notes.
Yes, yes. Um, the list I came up with for Jim, Canadiana doesn't even begin to describe it. Uh,
Uh-oh.
I do believe
Uh-oh, I
there are
better get
three,
my poutine ready to go, dude.
exactly, there are three Canadian artists on this list, if not more. I have to, you know. First up, we have a band from BC called Chilliwack.
Chilliwack. We have heard Chilliwack's name before on this show.
Yes, we have. Chilliwack started in 1967 in BC as under two band names. First, they were called the Classics, and then they were called the Collectors. Now, the Collectors started to gain a reputation for themselves in Los Angeles in the late 60s because they were able to go down there, go down to LA and tour the clubs. The album, and in terms of the music, they started out as psychedelic and psychedelic rock, and they eventually settled on the name Chilliwack. Um, and for this album, I've given you the second album, which is the second self-titled album, just called Chilliwack, released again in 1971 on A&M Records. It's a double album.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Yes, when I go, I go. Now, performing on this album, the band are now down to a trio. You have performing on the album, I'm going to give you a bit of background. You have Bill Henderson on guitars, lead vocals on piano. You have Claire Lawrence on bass, organ, flute, saxophone, and vocals, and Ron Toomey on drums and organ on one track called Night Morning. Now, this album goes from rock to psychedelic to, I guess you call it progressive. The lead off track, Lonesome Mary, which it was a top 10 hit in Canada. Um, oh my God, it is a fantastic album. Some would say it is of its time, but I think you'll like it. It's an eclectic mix. Um, of styles. Very experimental in spots, very psychedelic in others, and yeah, it's labeled as progressive. I'm not sure it's progressive as such. I think it's more experimental and psychedelic, but
Okay.
I think you'll like it. As I go down my list here,
So just to kind of confirm, we're talking about if our theme is buried treasures, I'm
yes,
thinking that these are albums which may fly under the radar of
yes,
kind
they
of
are.
most people
Yes.
and deserve a little oomph.
These albums are known in Canada, but probably in the US, they did fly under the radar to some extent.
Okay.
And I think that these albums deserve to be revisited again. And for those of you out there watching, you might pick up something new to listen to, right? The next album on my list for Jim is there was a band from Toronto that started on the early 70s by the name of Max Webster,
Aha.
fronted by one singer guitarist Kim Mitchell. Uh, Now in the band, they started in 72 and they gained a reputation for themselves in the local Toronto club scene. They were signed eventually in 75 to a small label called Taurus Records. They were eventually picked up by Anthem Entertainment, which is Rush's label and their management company. They released their debut self-titled album, Max Webster, in 1976. The album in the US was labeled retitled Hangover, which is the uh, the lead-off track on the album. Sorry. How can I put this album is pretty much. It's listed as progressive rock, straightforward rock, almost, I wouldn't say blues rock, but just an eclectic style of music on the album. In the band for the album, they went through various members, but performing on the album, you have Kim Mitchell on guitars and lead vocals, Terry Watkinson on keyboards and vocals. He did the cover art for the album. Mike Tilka um, on bass and vocals. Paul Kersey on drums and percussion. Um, and he would leave the band. And the Pi Dubois is also listed on the album for lyric. He
Mm.
was the lyrical partner for Kim Mitchell. Pretty much like a Bernie Taupin and Elton John collaboration. Uh, Pi Dubois would come up with the lyrics, and Kim Mitchell would come up with the music ideas or share them with the band. Fantastic album. The one track that stands out for me is Toronto Tontos. Very eclectic, almost comedic, but done very seriously. They're serious about their work. But the album is a good mix of rock, of I guess you'd say AOR rock, progressive rock. It's a good mixture. Um, Kim Mitchell doesn't get enough, I would say, um, how can I put this? He doesn't get enough credit as a lead vocalist, but I think he should. And as a guitarist, he is flawless. He is just amazing. The one track that I would say on this album that is, I would say, progressive tinged would be Lily, which is the final track on the album, 7 minutes and 42 seconds. And both albums so far, all the albums on this list you can check out on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, too. So yeah, that's um, number two.
So
Uh,
if I'm not mistaken, Pi Dubois, he also helped out with the lyrics on Tom Sawyer, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. You're right. I was remiss in saying that. Pi Dubois also helped co-write Tom Sawyer with Rush in 1981 for Moving Pictures. Fantastic. Next up is, I would say, one of the more obscure albums in the US. We're talking about the band, ladies and gentlemen, FM,
Hmm.
trio from Toronto, with their debut released in 1978 called Black Noise. Now, FM started, I believe, around 1975, 76. Um, this album, performing on the album, you have Cameron Hawkins on synthesizers, bass guitar, sorry, piano and lead vocals. Uh, Martin Deller on drums, percussion, and synthesizer, and Jeff Pluman, otherwise known as Nash the Slash, on electric mandolin, electric violin, a glockenspiel, and vocals and effects. Now, the lead off track is the one track that was a big hit in Canada called Phasers on Stun. Now, this album is listed as space rock, jazz fusion, and progressive rock. I would say it's more space rock and jazz fusion. Phasers on Stun is a fantastic track. It's the lead off track, lead off single. But you also have some instrumentals here. You have 1 o'clock tomorrow. Um, Hours, which is another instrumental, Journey, Dialing for Dharma, which, you know, uh, all the tracks are good. Um, Slaughter in Robot Village, okay?
Well, what
And
a great place for a slaughter.
yeah, exactly. Alderain and the title track is the final track on the album. 9 minutes and 50, I'm sorry, 9 minutes and yeah, 56 seconds. An all-out exploration and just doing whatever the hell you wanted to do. This album was originally released on, of all things, CBC Records. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation uh, recorded the album with the band, but instead of releasing it to the stores, originally the band understood that the album was going to be released in the stores. The album was, first of all, given away on their radio shows as prizes. Do you know what I mean?
All
So
right.
the band felt shortchanged about that. The album has been released in the US on Visa Records, among other labels. The most recent reissue has been released on Esoteric CDs, or Esoteric Music. Um, I think it's a hidden gem. I
Hmm.
think that if you want to put on an album that goes off into different directions, like jazz fusion, like I get, yeah, space rock is the best way to describe it. Beautiful work by Nasha Slash on violin and mandolin. Uh, Unfortunately, we lost Nasha Slash in 2014 due to a heart attack. Rest in peace, Nasha Slash. What made him so unique, I gotta stress this with Nasha Slash. What made him so unique was when, if you go on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, you will see early performances of FM on what was TV Ontario, okay? Channel 2, if you were in the Toronto area, okay? Um, and you would see them do early, like early performances live in studio. Nasha Slash would have like a hat on and sunglasses on, so you could never really see his face. He would go on to like wrap his face in gauze,
Hmm.
complete like bandages, and never be seen without those bandages on his face. So you never really knew what he looked like. Okay. And he would leave FM after this release for a time and go on. He was signed to Virgin Records in the UK. He would also have his own solo career. He would tour with bands, such acts as Gary Newman, in the UK and stuff. And he gained himself a reputation as an electronic solo artist. Okay, he would reunite with FM on and off throughout the years. But this album and the follow-up album is called Direct to Disc. And basically, what they did was they went into the studio for a direct to disc and just recorded two extended pieces for each side of the album. So each side is one track. And they did a direct mastering of this right away. So and I believe that when you press these, just do like a direct master, you can only press up to like something like 10,000 copies before you have to stop because it damages the master, like it damages the disc overall.
Hmm.
I have a direct to disc on vinyl, which I paid a pretty penny for, but Black Noise is considered to be their best known album in Canada in terms of the, indie progressive rock scene. Um, I think this list is going to that I gave you is going to, you know, it's going to open you up to a different style of music. Now,
Sure.
the last album on the list is pretty much, I guess you'd say, in the Mandy Moore catalog, singer-songwriter. Um, the artist is Gowan, otherwise known as Lawrence Gowan or Larry Gowan. Right, since 1999, he has been a permanent member of Styx, replacing Dennis DeYoung. We won't go into that controversy right now. Um, Gowan came on the music scene in the early 80s. He released his debut album, signed a deal with Sony, Columbia Sony, or CBS at the time, released his debut album self-titled and really didn't go anywhere. He gained popularity in Canada with his second release, Strange Animal, that was recorded in Ringo Starr studio. Strange Animal, produced by David Tickle, um, featuring bass work by Tony Levin. And it's got to be said, Gowan is a major progressive rock fan. He would go on to do work with John Anderson on the track Moonlight Desires. John Anderson from Yes providing um, harmony and background vocals for the track. The album I'm going to give you to listen to from Gowan is called But You Can Call Me Larry. Released in 1993, again signed to Anthem Entertainment, uh, Rush's label. This album sees Gowan move away from the more keyboard, electronic oriented stuff to more of a singer-songwriter acoustic guitar realm. The album was produced by Jerry Marotta, well-known session drummer, and Eddie Schwartz of Hit Me With Your Best Shot fame, um, written for Pat Benatar. Um, this is a fantastic acoustic-based album. Uh,
Hmm.
Soul's Road is a great track. When There's Time for Love is the lead off single. Um, it's pretty much a singer-songwriter album,
Okay.
really acoustic based. Um, The two main singles from the album are When There's Time for Love and Dancing on My Own Ground, right? Where overall, he's basically saying uh, on the album, in terms of the lyrical content, um, I've tried to live the life that I wanted to live. I wanted to be a star. I succeeded to an extent because he never really crossed over, I don't think, into the US in a major way as a solo artist. But he's basically saying, I'm back where I need to be with my loved one, with my family, and I'm ready to have my life the way it should be, or live my life the way it should be. Now, also performing on this album, you have contributions from John Sebastian of the Living Spoonful, uh,
Hey.
and also Robert Fripp contributes
Huh.
to the album on, I believe it's the final track on the album, Little Face. And Tony Levin also does bass work on the album. Tony Levin has worked with Gowan off and on over his career. So you have someone here who loves progressive rock. I mean, his favorite album, one of his favorite albums from Yes is Tales of Topographic Oceans, right? So yeah, I think you'll like it. I don't know if you're familiar
Okay.
with Gowan and his work at all.
Well, actually, strangely enough, I've seen Gowan live because he opened for Tears for Fears on the Songs for the Big Chair tour in the
Okay,
US.
okay.
So, yeah, so and I recall it being very, very proggish. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The one track that he's known for in Canada is A Criminal Mind. And he opened, this is how I believe it happened that that he ended up in Styx. He opened for Styx in Montreal um, on one of their tours. And Tommy Shaw, catching his act, his opening slot, asked him if he wanted to join the band because they were looking for a replacement for Dennis DeYoung. And he said, sure, sure. If, you know, he didn't want to cause any friction. You know what I mean? Because there
big
was a
shoes
lot
to
of
fill,
friction
yep.
going on. Yeah. But the one track that Styx keeps in their touring set is A Criminal Mind, right? Because
Okay.
if you listen to the that one track, I mean, he wrote it in his parents' basement, right? He was still living with his parents at the time. And A Criminal Mind is basically there is a video for it on YouTube. It was the album A Strange Animal was released in 1985, recorded in 84, released in 85, recorded again in Ringo Starr's studio.
Hmm.
And um, Criminal Mind basically talks about a guy who is a criminal and he knows that he's leading this life. He doesn't want to stop. He knows what he's doing is wrong. He doesn't care. Catch me if you can. I'm going to do what I want until you catch me, kind of a thing. You're not going to reform me. I know who I am. I'm not going to change. I don't want to change. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
very epic, very grand, and it can be considered proggish, that one track. So yeah, But I think this album, in terms of like, I guess you'd say singer-songwriter a la James Taylor kind of vein. I
Hmm.
think this one fits that label, I guess, most uh I guess apropos. It's the best one that would fit that label. I wanted to give you a bit of a cross section of albums to listen to. And
All right.
I think I've done it. I think I've done it.
Okay.
Um
So we've got four albums here, right?
yeah, the last one,
Okay.
I almost forgot about this one, is an album from a band that not people may not know. The band is Sound of Contact.
New to me. Sound of Contact. Yes.
Yeah. Um, they're a UK progressive rock band that have released one album. One of the members, well, one of the main songwriters and members of the band is Simon Collins, son of Phil Collins. The
Mm.
album that I'm going to give you to listen to, I almost forgot about this one. I thought I gave you five. Um,
Yeah, this would be five. Yeah.
yeah, this is the fifth one. I thought the Godwin album was five. It's been one of those days, guys. The album is called Dimension Knot. So the word dimension and then add an AUT on the end.
Yep. You know what? I actually know this record,
You
but
do?
I look forward to listening to it again because I enjoyed it.
You do?
But
Okay.
I'm gonna give it another listen.
Yeah. Very oh my God. I just came across this album back in 2013 reading about it on
Hmm.
Wikipedia. And after reading about it, because me, I wanted to listen to something new. I went out to my local HMV at the time, and they're like, "No, we've got it. Here you go." I'm like, "Oof, great album, very futuristic." Uh, the one of the singles from the album is called "Pale Blue Dot." Um, when you hear Simon Collins, his vocals very much sound like his father, Phil Collins. Uh,
Hmm.
but it's very heavy in guitar and in scope, very grand and production, and it's just a fantastic album. And the final track um, comes in like four parts, 19 minutes, right?
Mm.
So it's very, very big, very grand, very epic in scale in terms of its production. Um, yeah, it's in the on the album because at this point in time, um, Simon Collins is no longer in the band. They're down to two members, and it doesn't look like they're going to be releasing any albums anytime soon. Um, on the album, you have Simon Collins, uh, Matt Dorsey. Simon Collins is on lead vocals, drums, and percussion. Uh, Matt Dorsey on electric guitars, acoustic guitars, bass guitars, and backing vocals. Uh, Dave Kernzen, I believe it is, or Kernsman, on keyboards, acoustic guitars, and backing vocals, and Kelly Nordstrom on electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and bass guitars. So everyone's pretty much a multi-instrumentalist on this album. And if you look at the album cover, it's like a blue sky background, almost like in a desert, with like a steel figure eight done, like
Oh, like an infinity symbol.
an infinity symbol. Yeah, I call it figure eight, but it's an infinity symbol. So yeah, it's very futuristic and it's uh, album art. But yeah, it's good. It's a good album. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I thought I wanted to give you something that maybe you hadn't listened to. I think I succeeded with maybe three or four of these albums on the list, but it,
Well, definitely. I mean, I've listened to it once quite a long time ago, and I enjoyed it. So this might as well be five brand new albums, to
yeah,
me. I know we've talked about Chilliwack on another episode, but I'd never heard them. Max Webster and FM, I've heard little bits from them as I've sort of explored beyond the confines of Rush to kind of get into more Canadian, prog rock type stuff.
Yeah.
Um, the Gowan album, I had heard of Gowan. I knew that he was the lead singer now of Styx and the keyboardist, but had never heard this record. So yeah, I look forward to discovering these along with the rest of the Music Den audience.
No, well, again, I mean, I wanted to give you a bit of a cross section, and I didn't realize that a good amount of the list was Canadian until it's like, oh my God, I'm coming up with all these names. Another Canadian, another Canadian. But I thought, you know what, these albums need to be given a little bit more attention to. I
Cool.
think that as Canadian artists in the 70s, it was very difficult. In the late 60s, early 70s, it was very difficult to get airplay and very difficult to get noticed and get on a bill, with other bands. Bill Henderson from Chilliwack had said that it was easier to go from say Vancouver from BC from Vancouver to go to down to LA and start touring down there as it was easier to do that than to go across Canada because I mean Canada is so vast and expansive that getting on the tour bus, you know what I mean, and just going across Canada is a lot
Yeah.
more arduous than just driving down to LA and just doing the tour to get down there, and everyone knows the Guess Who, a lot of people know the Guess Who and bands like that, but I think Chilliwack need to be given a little bit more attention in terms of their output. Um, I failed to say this, but they were originally their first album, which is also called self-titled called Chilliwack. They were signed to Parrot Records. Now, Parrot
Okay.
Records was distributed by London Records. Parrot Records also signed artists such as Tom Jones, Engelbert Humperdinck, you know. So they really didn't know what to do with this Canadian folk psychedelic band that comes out and starts to do their own thing. And they were dropped after the one album. And then they were picked up by A&M. And I think to do a double album for your sophomore release is pretty ambitious, you know, um,
Yeah.
especially when you listen to what's on the album, especially I believe side B has two tracks and side C and D have one track each. They're like 18 minutes long, right? So
All right then.
yeah, it's tune in, you know, drop out and just
To
yeah,
drop out.
that kind of thing. I yeah, I mean you might want to burn one if you have to listen to this, but I think for experimentation and just at this point in time, bands were doing albums, not just doing albums, sorry. Bands are doing albums, but there was no expectation of them to deliver a hit in terms of radio play. They just did whatever the hell they wanted to do.
Hmm.
And the albums were released. And this album, the second Chilliwack album, subtitled, I think, is a prime example of that. Lonesome Mary again was a top 10 hit in Canada, and it's still played on FM radio today, um,
Well,
on classic rock radio. And uh, Bill Henderson has a vocal style where he can hit the high notes. He's mid-range in vocal delivery, but he can also hit the high notes when he has to, especially on Lonesome Mary. Um, but other songs that you might know from them are Fly By Night, which is mid 70s staple for rock radio in Canada anyway. And My Girl Gone Gone Gone, which is was
I
released.
seem to remember Bill mentioning that.
Yeah, they went through just very quickly. They went through a bunch of members. The they pretty much hit their stride in the early 80s when Brian Brian Too Loud McLeod, he was labeled, joined the band and they released the album Wanna Be a Star. And with the song My Girl Gone 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 and What You Gonna Do, those two tracks, those were pretty much They were on every KTEL album compilation in the early 80s that you could think of. And
Alrighty.
unfortunately, we lost Brian McLeod to cancer at the age of 39.
Oh, that's
Just
rough.
way too soon. Uh,
Yeah.
Brian McLeod, again, would go on to co-found a band called the Headpins, uh, featuring lead singer Darby Mills. Very husky, gravelly voice that she has. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers here on these albums. You really got to sit down and listen to them. So I hope you like
Okay.
what you hear. So
I look forward to diving in, and I will report back to the class.
there you go. So I guess we can do a part three for your reaction to this video, to these selections, and do a part three video. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Part two of Buried Treasures. Um, my reaction to Jim's list, and he's going to give me his reaction to my list. So it's going to go back and forth. So, and please, if you know of these albums, please put down in the comments down below, your opinions of these albums that we each given one another. And if you haven't listened to these albums, I please implore you, please take the time out, listen to these albums. You can, again, these albums are still available on, to purchase in some form or another. And you can also stream all these albums on YouTube, right? I've always said that music is never a waste. And if you enjoy discovering new styles of music, new bands, you've got nothing to lose. You've got everything to gain and nothing to lose. So just please take the time to listen to this list and again, give us your comments of what you think of these albums. If you've heard of them, fantastic. You can revisit them again and let us know what you think of them. So, do you have any comments, Jim? Any more comments?
I don't, other than I'm looking forward to diving in.
That's great. That's great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, uh, that's it for now. Please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that we've got coming up. And yeah, Jim and I will be back with Ken Cheshire and at some point Bill Schuster. He's taking a bit of a break right now. I'm going to be chatting with Bill sometime this week. We're going to catch up and see what we can do for more episodes. And we have a lot of stuff coming up. Believe me, I got a list this morning from Jim
More
of
ideas than we have time for.
exactly before, So please check out the list of albums that we gave you and let us know again what you think. And we'll see you soon with more videos. Okay, please take care of yourselves and one another. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.